So if you did a master's by research, which is like a 2-year program, if I'm correct, it's like synonymous to like an MPhil, if I'm being honest. And so if you did a master's by research, you should be able to bring your family because it's more than a year's program. It's more expensive because obviously you're paying 2 years as opposed to the 1-year master's. So you have to weigh the pros and cons. Like, there's also the fact that if you were doing that, sometimes I think about something like, if PhD is 3 to 5 years and master's by research is 2 years, if you really like research, then just go for a PhD. However, if the whole point is just to ensure that you can move your family, then by all means do a master's by research. But I would also say, depending on what type of master's by research you do also determines your profitability after school. Hello everyone, welcome to the Flavored Life channel. So excited to have you on here. My name is Favor Samson Ajayi, FSA for short. Welcome. You're in the right place, you're in the right space. Like I always say, it's not a coincidence that you're here, but a God incident. So you're welcome. So last week, we had a very interesting episode. I really liked it because it had everything in terms of what you should start to think about when you want to move. And how I talked about the pain points. And I know I was a bit passionate and really into the video. So today I'm going to try and make it slow. If you look at me looking down, it's just my phone, just using it to make sure that I don't miss any juicy points. Other things, I feel like, and I'm also not trying to repeat myself, because I know we did a series where we then got advices from like a survey, and people gave anonymous responses of the advices to anyone that want to move and all of that. But I think and I also talked about in my last video where I said things to look out for if you want to relocate in terms of research and going into that in much detail. So just to move ahead, I think this is really just because I've had situations where people are wondering, should we do the study route? Should we do the work route? And so this video is for that purpose. So it's going to be quick, it's going to be short, hopefully, fingers crossed. But like, I feel like the first point of call is the fact that when you're thinking, should I do a study route or do I do a work route? It actually depends. I can't just tell you, shoot, go for it. I mean, it depends. Do you have the money for study? Like, if you do, why not? If not, it's easier. It's definitely easier. However, there are intricacies to this. So do you have a family? Because now the new rules are designed in a way that it's now a bit tighter to bring family. And the only way to circumvent that usually would now be obviously using with a master's by research, because people are like, oh, now with a master's I can't bring my family. Well, you still can, just depends on packaging, as I would like to put it. So if you did a master's by research, which is like a 2-year program, if I'm correct, it's like synonymous to like an MPhil, if I'm being honest. And so if you did a master's by research, you should be able to bring your family because it's more than a year's program. It's more expensive because obviously you're paying 2 years as opposed to the 1-year master's. So you have to weigh the pros and cons. Like, there's also the fact that if you were doing that, sometimes I think about something like, if PhD is 3 to 5 years and master's by research is 2 years, if you really like research, then just go for a PhD. However, if the whole point is just to ensure that you can move your family, then by all means do a master's by research. But I would also say, depending on what type of master's by research you do also determines your profitability after school, because you wouldn't want to spend that much money and then end up looking for a job without no direction after the course. So there's also masters in nursing that is also equivalent of 2 years. That's also another opportunity for you to also do something that would also end up viable after the program. If you're doing masters by research, you might want to think about things in data, things in AI. Other things would look like, I believe there's masters by research in systems design. And the thing about it is not every school that has several faculty within Masters by Research. Does that make sense? And so, for example, in my uni, I know they just have about 4 or 5 courses under the Masters by Research category. So some older unis might have more. So those are the things you also have to check and then realize that, do I really have interest in any of these areas? Because research, I would tell you, it's not easy, it's not cheap. And, authentic research is also, it takes rigor, it takes brain strength, and it does take it from you, if that makes sense. And because of that, I would say have a bit of an interest in the area. You don't have to love it, because like you said, you're being practical as to the things that would help you. If you love it, by all means, that would be perfect. But if you like it, I just want, have an interest in it. Don't just go something and then you don't even have an interest. Why? Because there'll be days where it'll be so long and so stretchy and all of that. So you need interest to take you through the long haul. Obviously, there's also the option of doing a PhD so that you could bring your family. And then bear in mind that I know there's a misconception that you have to have a master's to do a PhD, but actually, you don't have to have a master's to do a PhD. I know you don't have to have a master's to do a PhD. You can. Sometimes people do MPhil into PhD, right? However, you can even just get, if you have a good undergrad and you get high A's, you could actually get direct entry into a PhD. I remember that's one of the things I wanted to do. I wanted to skip the master's entirely and just go straight into for my PhD. However, looking back now, I'm glad I did the master's. Why? Because the master's was my way to clarify if I did have the interest that I said I had in the field that I wanted to do. Because at the time, I was so interested in doing energy, and going into the master's, I switched from energy to environment. So do you see? So if I feel like I'm glad I had the master's, because I was able to see what kind of research I really wanted to do on the long haul. So those are the pros and cons. However, it is possible. Because I thought of doing that as well. So I did my research, and I remember at that time it was. Another option also could be looking for funded PhDs. There's several, there are couples. Some of them are limited to a particular project. Some of them are limited by topic. Some are limited by fields. But it's not impossible. There's several schools. There's the University of Essex. UH is currently doing a 5 studentship for PhD. I think it's home fees though, so the difference might have to be covered, but then that would still be better than you covering the whole thing, because national fees are higher. So there are things you can weigh, and some of them are even for international. So I know Essex is doing, I don't know if the CS1 is with students, UK students, or if it's home fee, international fees as well. So you have several schools that also have studentships for PhD students, and they also give you stipends as well. So that way, it's an easier way to morph and move. So those are options to consider when you're thinking these options. If you're going through the work route, so now maybe you have 7, 5, 6, 10 years of experience. Honestly, you could come through the work route. And I know people were like, oh, now it's harder. Now it's almost impossible because there's such a tight, job market at the moment, even within the country. So how would I be advising people that are coming in? I'm saying it's possible. I still know somebody that knows somebody that came in recently, and a few months ago, about 4 or 5 months ago, that just came into the country and was fully sponsored, and they brought their family. So I'm saying it's not impossible. It just depends on your field, depends on your sector, depends on, time and chance happens to them all. Depends on all of that. So it's not impossible. So why would you have so much wealth of experience and just want to go for the barest minimum? So I would say, if you listen to my last episode, I'll just put the link up there. If you listen to my last episode, I talked about, making sure that you update your CV to the current country that you're wanting to move to. Then make sure that it's updated to the requirements required for the nation that you want to go. When you do that, try to see how viable your current CV is. I call it the CV worth. I always check. Every year I revamp my CV for every degree or every certification I upgrade to. I just do a CV update and ensure that I just apply to jobs. Doesn't necessarily mean I'm actively looking for the job. It just means that I want to check the worth of my CV. I want to check the worth of my knowledge. I just want to check how viable is this CV currently in the market? How viable is my current experience? What is it worth? So, put it to the test. Don't just like, zilch all that years of experience. No, like use it. Market yourself. I think one thing that people undervalue is being able to market yourself. Honestly, I have some one-to-one coaching sessions, and one of the things, if I prep you for an interview, by the time you're done, even you won't hire you until you get to that level. You're not ready, in the sense that a lot of times we really underplay our skills, our experiences. Imagine someone having 15 years of experience and want to just drop all of that in the bank and literally come as a master's student. That's crap. In the sense that I'm not saying you cannot keep learning, but I'm saying that you can also use what you currently have to upgrade to what you want. So there's also that option. There's always that option. So I would say take it, But I'm going to cut this video short because, like I said, these are the different routes. You just need to look at the pros and cons, what works, what doesn't work, what's better, what isn't, and then plunge in. Plunge in the sense, if you've decided that I want to go through a job route, don't be quick to break. If in the next 3 months it hasn't happened, it doesn't happen does not mean you just need one yes. Even if you had 100 yeses, you just have to choose one. And so even if you have 100 no's, you just have to wait for the right yes. So you could give yourself a time frame. You could, and if it's not working, you could get in touch with career consultants like us and reach out. There might be ways, The beautiful thing is the world is a global village. There's always help out there. Sometimes it's just for you to reach out. And so I'm going to stop here. I do wish you a great move, great job search, great study search. Also, if you're going to think about schools, one point I just need to wrap up quickly, but one point I just want to add is, know the location you want to go. So for example, if you want to go, if you're choosing the study route, think about viability of the job market too, because full-time study, part-time work, you have 20 hours limit. So you want to think about where you're going to easily get work in the sector that you're in. You also want to think about affordable accommodation. You also want to think about all these things around these areas, because the area that you choose will also really deeply impact what you can do. It will also impact your accommodation. It will impact several things. So it depends on how much you even have as well. So all of these things are part of the things to think about when you're thinking about the school to choose, the course to choose. You also have to think about which of the schools you want to go. But without further ado, I'll see you in my next video. This is still the Flavored Life channel, and I'll see you. Please don't forget to like, to share, to comment, and to subscribe. Be part of the family. Don't dull. It's still FSA on the channel, and I'll see you next week. Bye.